There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. And I am honored today to have some great guests with us, starting off with the Honorable Joanne Davidson. Joanne Davidson, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. We also have Councilwoman Meredith Lawson-Rowe joining us, and we'll get to Andrew Bowsher, who is wonderful in his own right, a little bit later. The big thing for us really today is to recognize the women's contributions in National History Month, National Women's History Month. So I just wanted to ask a couple of questions of our guests. We'll start off with you, Ms. Joanne Davidson, and ask very simply, what does National Women's History Month mean to you, and how do you feel that you've made a big contribution to our, I mean, you're basically a legend in Reynoldsburg and in Ohio in general. And so how does that legacy, how do you feel about that legacy as you move forward?
Well, we had great plans when we knew that it was coming to have a big celebration, but obviously our battle with the virus has kind of made everybody back off and say, let's just do the fundamental things. So there will be some activities as we get through the month, recognizing that. And basically, the whole intent really is to make the young women of today understand the privileges and the opportunities that they have before them now as they grow a little older, and to encourage them to take advantage of it. I have always said that basically when you're in a committee meeting, whether it's at the state level or the city level or at the national level, it's important for a woman to be in that committee meeting too. I've spent too many committee meetings when I was the only woman in the meeting. And so I think in today's age, we just need to be sure that we're doing everything we can to be sure that women's thoughts, ideas, experiences, obviously are being shared in those meetings, because they are important. And if they're not participating in it, it's going to mean that you're going to have to come back and redo it fairly quickly. And it denies women the opportunity to use their experiences to help to build your city programs. I'm very impressed with what you are doing as far as improving the roads and bringing new businesses in and opening new restaurants. And I think that women, and I'm glad that you've got a lot of councilwomen too, so that you can be part of that and be sure that women's ideas and thoughts and concerns are addressed.
Absolutely. Also joining us today is Councilwoman Kristen Bryant. So thank you again for joining us. Councilwoman Lawson-Rowe, we'll kind of go to you. Same question, as far as what does National Women's History Month mean to you, and how are you playing that to move that legacy forward?
Thank you, Mayor Joe. I appreciate the opportunity to actually be on the screen with these women legendary leaders. Mrs. Joanne Davidson, you're the blueprint for council women leaders here in Reynoldsburg. So I salute you. And to my senior leader on council, Councilwoman Bryant, it's a privilege to be on the screen with you. And might I also say happy Patrick's Day to those that celebrate. I had to dig deep down in my closet to find some green. So Women's History Month, to me, it's just an opportunity for us as a society to be intentional, to celebrate all of the accomplishments that women leaders have added to our country and the world as a whole. So say, for instance, it's not only the women leaders of the past, it's also women leaders here today in modern history. And when I say leaders, I don't necessarily think in terms of those of us that have a title. I think of those of us that are the nameless and the faceless members of our society. I think back, obviously, to my mother and my grandmommy, who were my first leaders. My grandmother, who had a business in her 30s as a newly divorced woman with 2 young children that had moved from the South to Colorado. I think of women like my grandmother, who at age 60 had become a real estate agent. So we don't always have to be young women leaders. For those seasoned leaders like myself, I look to my cousin, who has been a pillar of a business in Springfield for over 40 years that has broadened her business to also serve the community. And my cousin Patty Young, is the owner of a salon, and her sister, who is her manager, Deborah Woods, they are actually scheduling appointments for the community for anyone that is interested in COVID-19 vaccines. And it's largely for the Black community, but it's for anyone. And so I look to those leaders. I look to my great aunt, who was denied the opportunity to go to college because she was told she didn't need to go to college, that she needed to take sewing classes. So she made the lemons into lemonade, and she created her own home-based business to help contribute to raising her family. And in the 50s and 60s, all the way up until the 80s, when her eyesight failed, she had her own seamstress business. And so her contribution was actually serving the professional white families in Springfield, which is a big deal. So the nameless and faceless are who I salute. And I just stand on the shoulders. And so what it means to me to lead is I stand on the shoulders of those women, such as I shared, but also the Honorable Joanne Davidson, and currently Honorable Kristen Bryant, because it is my hope and prayer that other young women look to me, like my daughter and my granddaughter, and as they begin to serve in their own contributions, stand on my shoulders. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, Councilwoman Kristen Bryant, you've got to follow these two extraordinary examples up. I'm sorry. You've obviously were a trailblazer on your own with this, but if you'd like to share your thoughts as well, please. You were the one that has inspired a number of people to get more involved locally. So feel free and share your thoughts on National Women's History Month.
Thanks, Mayor. I think that as we begin looking at history, we look back at the history we were taught growing up and the textbooks that we were given to read. And it was the history of white men. And, you know, this is, you know, moments like Black History Month, Women's History Month. That's an opportunity for us to take a look at all the history that we've missed along the way. All of the people that have come before us that have done extraordinary things and been leaders. And, you know, oftentimes we don't hear much beyond Susan B. Anthony and, you know, a few others. So, you know, it's an opportunity to go back and see what we really have done. You know, the number of inventions, the number of women like Joanne Davidson who stepped forward to run and hold office at a time when it probably was not considered ladylike. And I've never been much on being ladylike. Those who know me, I tend to be a little bit more like a bull in a china shop. But just a little bit. Yeah, I don't believe in the word no. And those around me are nodding and agreeing. Yes, I don't like the word no. But you know, we have a responsibility to, you know, look back to people like Joanne Davidson, Fran Ryan, you know, women like that who, you know, Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy has made a name for herself in Central Ohio politics. There's so many that have come before us that, you know, we honor by moving forward. And then we also have the responsibility to reach behind us and pull other women up behind us to step forward and be the leaders that many of them often don't realize that they are. You know, when Councilwoman Lawson Rowe was approached to run, what, me? I could never. What are you talking about? And I see Joanne smiling. I think probably has had a conversation or two like that herself, I suspect. But you know, when we see something in other women, we have a responsibility to tell them what we see and encourage them to step up and step forward and continue to do those things and foster young women to, not look at themselves as, oh, I could never, come to a city council meeting, watch, we're not, we're not exactly Mensa members. I think anybody with a dedication and commitment to serving the public can do what we do. But it's a difficult road because nobody wants to put themselves out there and be challenged for what they're doing. And, sometimes you have to say, well, if my leaders aren't going to do what I want them to do, I'm going to have to do it myself. And I think that's how a lot of women get into it. I know I was driven by seeing things around me that I didn't care for. And so I wanted to make change. And we have to let others know that, you can be that change too. You just have to believe that and have good people around you who will support you. And I think, oftentimes during Women's History Month, we hear about, Shirley Chisholm and the whole idea of bringing a chair to the table. And I think I said back in 2018, the time for asking for that seat at the table is over. It's time that we demand it. And, you got to knock down the door and flip over the table sometimes instead of wanting a seat there. Sometimes you got to flip the table over. So I think we're doing that right now. And we will continue to do that and do the best we can to lead our city.
Well, thank you. One of the best examples that I've seen recently, you talk about passing things on to that next generation, is a few months ago, a couple of council women and our new deputy chief had a chance to talk to some Girl Scouts that came in, and I was happy to take a back seat. I kind of went off to the side and I watched these young women ask questions and hear some of these inspirational stories from what you've all gone through, the challenges, the obstacles, and more than anything, you could almost see, like, you could see their belief building in themselves that they could be more than whatever they thought they could have been before. And you've all led the way for so many, and we are so appreciative for everything. It is the least that we can do to recognize this. And on a personal note, I'm thrilled that I'm able to work with some great women here at City Hall, not only on council, but just our staff. The city would not be where we are right now without everyone's contributions for it, and I'm very thankful for it. You are all more than welcome to stay on the show for the remainder. If you have any other comments, I'd be happy to hear from Honorable Joanne Davidson. Again, you've seen Reynoldsburg change over the years, and what your thoughts are on that. Can always be happy to have you on the show at a later time, but I do want to respect your time. I don't know what your schedules are like the rest of the day. So if you have any other comments.
No, I think I'll just stay with you and see how you do this.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here. So I'll go ahead and move on. I'm sure we may get some questions along the way. I'm a big fan of some of those unscripted questions. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a nostalgia for my days as a teacher, getting asked some of the most unique questions at opportune times. So we'll start off first off. This is our soliciting permit sign. So if you can take a look at this, you have the opportunity, if you would like to drop by City Hall or the Reynoldsburg Police Department and pick up a sign that says no soliciting if you would like to not be bothered by solicitors. If you signed up for our Reynoldsburg Connects email, which you can do so by going to our webpage and scrolling down to the bottom, and you can get these news blasts that will come out. And our most recent issue that went out yesterday, the Reynoldsburg Connect had a story about our soliciting program. So if you're one of those people that you're trying to go about your business on a daily basis and your doorbell rings and someone's there trying to sell you any number of things, you should know that they have to have a permit. They will all have a permit with them. They'll actually have an ID badge that's given to them by the city of Reynoldsburg, so you know that they are legitimate and authorized to be providing those services to your door. Sometimes it could be somebody's, lawn work, something to do with insects, maybe solar paneling, any number of those things. But they all are supposed to be authorized by the city of Reynoldsburg. They're supposed to come in here and get that. And as we upgrade our web page over the next couple of months, you'll start to see that information come out. We'll try and let you know who's going to be out knocking, so that way you're aware of it. So that way that that nothing fraudulent is going on. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of those things for those non-solicitors. That way my wife can stop teasing me that I'm scaring people when I'm asking them for their permit, knowing full well that I'm the one that signs off on it, and I should know. We do have a couple of other things going on today. We'll get to our regular guest, Andrew Bowsher, in just a moment, but we do have a Reynoldsburg football cash drop this weekend from 11 to 4 at the Livingston campus. As you know, last year, the Reynoldsburg football team had limited attendance because of COVID, and some of their funding that they get purchase their equipment and some of their new things that they're looking for were limited because seating was on a limited basis. So if you would like to donate, you can drive by the Livingston campus. They'll have a cash drop. You'll drive in and do a circle around. You'll see some of our football players out there. I know they're looking to get some more equipment so they can work on strength, conditioning, and things like that. So hope to see you out here this Saturday. We also have our Helping Hands food drive. Again, unfortunately, the need is great as ever. So on April 10th, the Lions Club, the Reynoldsburg City Schools, Reynoldsburg City, and Impact Church will be holding a food drive here at City Hall on April 10th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll be taking non-perishable items the entire time. So we hope that you're able to come out here and join us for that. I know we're going to have another one in May, and then we usually do one in the fall as well. So keep those things open for you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and change directions a little bit, and I'm going to introduce Andrew Bowsher. Andrew Bowsher is our Director of Development here in Reynoldsburg, and always a popular topic of conversation about what's coming in, what's not, why is this coming in, why not something else. So Andrew has given us some time. This is probably the longest he's been without having a cell phone to his ear, trying to talk to somebody to convince them how great Reynoldsburg is and how to come here. So we're going to start off with the question I usually ask everybody. Andrew, what brings you, this COVID thing has obviously changed the way that our lives are, but what has brought you joy during this time of COVID over the last year, other than your boss that makes you come into work all the time?
I appreciate that question, Mayor. Well, first, let me just say that it's been an honor to sit here and listen to these great females and these great leaders in our community. It's going to be really tough to sort of follow this up because, you guys are shining stars, and, we have a great female cast that sort of is here at City Hall and for me at home. So, special thanks to Melissa and Emily as part of my staff here, and thanking them for Women's Month as well. To answer your question, Mayor, I think for me, it's that we weren't sleeping on the job during COVID. I don't think that all cities can say that. And I think that we were extremely challenged and we had a lot of things going on. So I stayed busy, even if we were quarantined at home. You joke about the cell phone being attached to my ear, but it's either the screen in front of my face or the cell phone on my ear. And I said, and that's how a lot of the development gets done. And so it was really appreciative that we were able to sort of hit the ground running. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of the fruits of the labor here 2021 and on.
All right, well, tell us about yourself. I know you were here before I got into office. So why don't you tell us how you, where you came from, where you went to school, your history, and then what brought you to Reynoldsburg?
Yeah, so I just started my 4th year here at Reynoldsburg. I was appointed under Mayor McLeod and then was asked to stay on by Mayor Begany. So thank you. And for me, I'm a graduate of Ohio State in city and regional planning. My background is within planning and public administration. Before that, I was served 5 years active duty in the United States Army. I had 2 tours overseas and served honorably. After deactivation, I had done a lot of consulting work, worked up in Fostoria, doing a downtown plan to them. Also worked for the YMCA of Central Ohio and Ohio State actually as the campus. And most recently, before I came back to Central Ohio, I was actually working out in Santa Barbara County. I was helping launch rockets into space, which is pretty exciting. And I got to meet a lot of the great cast that's out there with Blue Origin, NASA, and SpaceX and their programming. So kind of all around and have a very diverse background that I'm pretty proud of.
Well, thank you for your service. Obviously, I'm very impressed that you did not mention wine. Usually when you bring up California, you do bring up California wines. So that's pretty good self-restraint on your part. I do appreciate that. Now, you obviously have a passion for development. So let's go through a couple of scenarios. I want to start a business. What's the process that comes out? How would I go about doing it? How does your office get involved in those things?
Yeah, that's great. So a lot of times people will find us on the website. They will call us and we will talk to them, either the development staff or the building division. And sort of from us, we make sure that people are following the rules. They're filling out a permit. They're going through an occupation permit and moving through that way. And those are just the simple, filling vacant spaces. And then it gets a lot more complex when we're working with entities that are looking at building something or remodeling another building. And so we're always out there looking for new commercial development that's happening. We're always trying to fill vacancies here within the city.
So one example, which is, kudos to the city of Reynoldsburg for recently, as we all know, selling the Kmart property on the corner of Bryce and Main Street. Kind of go through that process, because I think a lot of people will be very curious to hear how that started, from a development point of view, because obviously the property has been for sale for quite some time. So how did pieces fall in place for this particular opportunity?
Yeah, so we have looked at that site tirelessly for even before I was here, but certainly we put it into the comp plan that it was a very key area that we needed to take a look at. So it was followed up in the comp plan. We rezoned the entire area called the Bryce and Main District within the zoning code. And we had talked through several developers, a lot of big names that were out there trying to pull together these things. And there were a lot of people that were reaching out to us and saying, well, we could make it a storage facility. We could make it, an Ollie's or something of that nature, but it wasn't the best use for that space. That is sort of the gateway. That is the entryway to the west from the city. We certainly wanted to reinvent what that space was and hold true to everything that we talked about and everything the residents wanted in our comp plan. So when I went out to the site the day that I met John Stumbo and some of his group, I was a bit skeptical. Didn't really know sort of what to expect. They wanted to go and tour the Kmart site. They were looking inside of it. And then as we got to meet the Alliance, as I got to meet John and his team and really getting to know him, I think a great passion and a great sort of relationship started to build. And knowing that they looked at 120 different sites, they looked at a nationwide search and they found that Midwest was really where they wanted to be, including Cleveland, Columbus, and Indianapolis. And there were really some tough competing sites that were really probably maybe easier, maybe less challenging. But I think it was because of our speed to market, the availability, the closeness of my staff and City Hall to that developer, creating sort of that relationship with them, and also our diversity and our willingness to see them as more than just an organization, but as part of the Reynoldsburg family. And I think they really fell in love with that and sort of what we were trying to do here. And it really checked all the boxes for what they were looking for in a community, which was a partner, not necessarily just a place to build.
Well, obviously the big question that's on a lot of people's mind when it comes to development in Reynoldsburg is housing. So there's a lot of give and take with housing. We have the first new housing development at MI that's going to be built off Wagner Road. For those of you that haven't been there, they're starting that phase work right now. But when it comes to residential housing, we know there's a housing shortage in Central Ohio, and Reynoldsburg is the second hottest real estate market in the city, which certainly has helped people calling. Do you get a lot of phone calls on a daily basis for residential housing? And if they do, then how is that different from I'm calling because I want to open up a restaurant, or I'm calling to open up something else? What's the difference between the two?
Great question, Mayor. I'm going to correct you for a second, though. You said second hottest in the city. We're actually second hottest in the country. So
that's right. Yeah.
Much even bigger. We are only second to Colorado Springs right now, which is some pretty good company to have. And I think there's a lot of things that go into that. But when we get residential development that comes out, there's kind of two things here that's sort of at play. Number one, the city is extremely affordable, which is one of the reasons why we are so hot. When new commercial development wants to come into the city, they always take a look and say, well, when is the last time you've had a housing project? How old is your housing stock? What's your median income? What's your median home value? all of those things were drastically lower than what they wanted to see. So it's really, there's a marriage between housing and employers, because if you can't have an employer located in your city if you don't have equitable housing that's going to house their employees. Everybody wants mixed use walkable neighborhoods and they want to be connected. So we have to make sure that we're providing those housing options. And I just checked on the MLS just over the weekend. We have 11 active listings currently right now in the city of Reynoldsburg. That is extremely small. On an average year, in an average any given time, we should have 14 to 20,000 homes sort of up for sale. So we're really, really low. And I don't mean in Reynoldsburg, but I mean as a region. But to get back to your original question about what happens. So a developer will reach out to us and say, we're looking at putting this property in contract. Tell me about the zoning. Tell me about the things that we can do. And we'll try to work with them. And we try to do as much work ahead of time as we possibly can to make sure that they're conforming to all the regulations that are set forth. And we're trying to make sure that we're getting the best product possible, especially for that space. We let them know about the other developments that are happening within the area. And hopefully we can combine that effort into a really great product that's for, the current residents are proud of, but as well as all the new residents that want to come here. I think it's exciting because as a neighbor and as anybody that's living in Reynoldsburg, there are people that want to be your neighbor. And that's a pretty exciting thing to have, because there could be a lot of other places where people don't want to live, that they're leaving and vacating, but not here. People actually want to be here. So we're not actually out there actively searching for residential development, but we are actively working with those developers to try to get the best things possible for Reynoldsburg.
Now, a lot of people ask questions about, well, the reason why we have so much residential development is because the city makes a lot of money off property taxes. Does the city actually make much of anything on property taxes?
We almost make nothing, to be honest. To be truthfully frank, we make 80% of 1% of all property taxes, and that's at a best case scenario. Typically, your tax distribution, you can actually find it on any of the county auditors. I know we have 3 counties here, but it's very easy to find on the Franklin County one. You can actually take a look at your tax distribution. The majority goes to the school district, and then followed that up by the township and county, and then you round out with special groups like the library. That you pay tax to the library from your property taxes. You'll pay property taxes to the Columbus Zoo. You'll also pay them to Adam H. and other organizations like that that pull from that. And then on the very bottom line, you'll see the city, and that's where we get our property taxes from. It's a very, very small number for the amount of properties that are within the city.
I know a couple of questions that also come out. Typically we have a new Chick-fil-A coming in that area. And what's different about this Chick-fil-A than some of the other ones? Because I know there's a lot of people, that's one of the big questions that I see on social media is we heard they were coming, are they coming? And the building's supposed to be torn down in the next couple of weeks. And I know they're looking to start big construction in April. But what makes this one a little bit different?
Yeah, so I think, from this standpoint, one, they're taking over another area. They actually wanted to find a location that was much larger in scale than what they're typically seeing out there. And not necessarily that the building is larger, but they're adding double lanes through the parking environment, but also extending that lane so it doesn't come out. So if you have been to a Chick-fil-A at any time in the last 10 years, you can see that line wraps around the building and comes out. And I certainly enjoy, a chicken sandwich. So it's just a really interesting concept, but they're doing everything in their power to make sure that they can get things through faster. They're providing sort of this pedestrian lane as well for individuals, for their staff to sort of come out with the tablets and out there taking as many orders as they possibly can. So they're really reinventing the wheel on how fast casual, chains, are moving forward.
Now, I know we don't have anything big right now to make any announcement, but we're hoping to see something soon. I know we talked about the new Kroger location. We're hoping to see some movement out there. I know Buns and Brews has been announced. Nothing's been official yet, but we think that that's one of the things that's going to be there. So we're probably looking to see something in that area maybe in the next month or two.
Yeah, I would say that you're probably going to see construction sometime this year during the summertime. They're finalizing some engineering plans. Kroger's is a very large company, so they've got a lot of things that checks and balances that they have to do to get things moving and through. But I would say that by the end of this year, you can see maybe 5 to 6, brand new restaurant retail spaces that are going to be out there. And they got 2 other out parcels that we're working with very closely with them to try to find locations. One of probably the scarier things during COVID is when we were working with so many restaurant groups, they were really, wow, we don't know how this is going to affect us. We don't know what things are going to look like into the future. Is this going to turn into an Uber Eats and a DoorDash type of reality moving forward? I think things have calmed down a little bit. I think people understand that vaccines are coming out. Things are going back to normal. We're putting people back to work. So be on the lookout for more restaurant spaces that are going to come into the city, moving forward. And I will say this, that anytime that we talk to them and we talk to them about sort of the housing and the strategy and the implementation that we're working with MORPC and the other regional partners, they're very, very high on Reynoldsburg, and they're super excited about what we're doing. And it gets other people very interested and excited because now we're growing not only the population, but the market that may have been oversaturated over the last 20 years.
All right, everybody's favorite time. It's time for questions. So.
All right, Andrew, we have a question that says, how do you envision through the work you do, making Reynoldsburg the best place to work, live, and play?
That is a fantastic question. So I'm a very passionate person. I'm certainly 100% in whenever I'm trying to do something. I literally work tirelessly. Even on days that I take vacations, the mayor is still texting me, hey, what's an update on this? What's going on with this? And that's fine. It's how I like
to. He doesn't take vacations. Don't let him lie.
That's true. I don't. But I really do. And I know there was a question that was on there about whether I live in the city or not. I do not. I call Gross City home. It's where my children go to school. It's where I graduated high school at. But I literally just lay my head there. I'm a Central Ohio person. I am a Buckeye through and through. And Reynoldsburg has really been my home for the last 4 years. I'm here majority of the time. And I think for us, it's taking all of my skill set. It's taking the guidance that I have from city council and the mayor and the other administration that's here. It's taking the residents' wishes and the collective variety of a whole of a community and really trying to sort of push it forward. One of the things that I've always, I guess, said about Reynoldsburg, coming on board is we've really been the sleepy big brother out east that nobody sits around and talks about, but we're just as large as Gross City. We're bigger than Gahanna. We're bigger than Hilliard. We're almost as big as Dublin. So it's really, our work over the last several years is really starting to pay dividends, and people are really starting to learn our name again and know that we have the close proximity to the airport. We have Route 40, the national road that runs through, and all the redevelopment opportunities. And I think those are the things that are really sets us apart. We have amazing bones here in the city. I couldn't be prouder to be on this team and working in this city. And I hope to have several more years of success here.
Always got to throw that plug in for a contract extension. I see how it is. No, you're doing a great job. Do we have any other questions? Okay.
Andrew, can you talk a little bit about the development story map?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I rolled that out in 2018. As the mayor knew when he came on, it's extremely hard to sort of connect with individuals, which is why Joe created this show at noon so you could have lunch with him or drink some coffee. And I think the same thing went when I wanted to create a story map. So nobody was doing this in Ohio that I knew of at the time. And so our idea is that people were always throwing stuff out on Facebook and saying, well, what's going on there? Or when you drive past, I even do that in and around Central Ohio. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. And then I'll have to go and dig out research. Well, not everybody probably knows how to go after the research. So I wanted that to be at the fingertips of everyone living in the community to be able to see what's going on. So you can take a look at anything that's being proposed, under review, approved, or under construction, or even complete all throughout the city. And it geosyncs that location on a GIS database system that we manage here in-house. And the goal is so everybody knows what's going on. You can have a pretty little picture, and we're going to try to actually roll out a second version of that that's going to have clickable links to where it actually links you to the planning commission meetings of when those are going to be reviewed, so you can continue to follow along during the development process.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's asking about the Google map on the city webpage. It says it's between 10 and 20 years out of date. And when you zoom in, the boundaries disappear before you can see the street names for any of the major roads. Are there any plans to update it?
guess I'm not really
So it's
familiar.
kind of like a Google Maps update. It's not something that's ours,
Yeah.
but I think when they click on it, we've had the same concern too. Like you click on it and they put a picture of Reynoldsburg, and it's not always the most flattering of pictures of the city of Reynoldsburg on the Googles. I know that, like, if you look at it now, I don't even think the YMCA is finished on that particular map. So hopefully Google will get their cars out there this summer and kind of update some things, because it would be helpful. I know when we're kind of zooming around doing the same thing. Maybe
Yeah,
we-
those are based on the Iridium satellites that are up in space. Those are the ones that are taking the pictures. They're launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base, where I was from. And so those actually are typically updated on a triannual basis. So probably next year you'll see, or at least it'll be a phase to where you can see actually construction happening on the community center, and then maybe 3 years after you'll see a complete one. So it just takes some time. I bet they're going to get faster and faster. One of the things we are trying to do with MapQuest and Google is trying to deroute a lot of the semi-truck traffic out of Route 40 and route them onto 70 to get them out of the downtown traffic areas. So we're working with them on trying to solve a lot of those concerns and issues, because a truck that's driving south on 270 should be staying on the interstate and not getting off on 40 if they're trying to go out to 310. I think that's going to lower some of the congestion that's happening on 40. And certainly as we roll out our streetscape project this year and next year, that's going to make it more pedestrian friendly. And I think you're going to see some other great businesses that pop up along with Vic's, Pros, Tempe Taco, and all the rest of the great ones that are downtown in Reynoldsburg.
All right, looks like we have at least another question.
Got some more. All right, Andrew, what value guides you and how do you make development decisions for Reynoldsburg?
Yeah, I think it's a collective whole. It's certainly listening to, my boss and sort of the collectiveness of city council, understanding that, we spend a lot of time, energy, and money on our comprehensive plan and our zoning strategy. So at this point, we've laid out the entire framework. So, all of those, things that we put into those plans, the values that we instilled into it. But I also take my personal values, my personal morals that I was taught as a child, through my father, through the military. I take that here. I take this job extremely serious. I take developing this community very serious. I know that not everything that happens in the community, not everyone's going to like, but we try to do as best as we possibly can. And I hope that everyone knows that there's a greater vision and a greater goal for the things that we're doing here. We certainly want to broaden the commercial activity that's happening in the city. We do want new residents, but we want to be smart about it. So we try to make it smart growth and smart development as much as possible.
All right, Andrew, is the Bryce and Main development going to be a pedestrian type of development?
Absolutely. I like to coin the phrase, it's going to be Reynoldsburg's mini version of Grandview Yard. It will not just be the Alliance. One of the things that the Alliance told us through and through is we could be located in Westerville or Dublin, and we could be in an office park surrounded by a sea of parking, but that's not what they wanted. They wanted a community feel. They wanted mixed use walkable neighborhoods. They wanted to provide some housing that was in there for people to be able to live. They wanted to make sure that the people working at the coffee shop on the bottom floor of their building could actually go there and work and live, but also the people that are buying the coffee as well. So when we discuss that, there's going to be a huge mixture of office space, restaurant, retail space, housing, and of course, their location as well. They're going to partner with a lot of other developers that are going to bring in other sorts of businesses within that area. For them specifically, they're more concerned about their specific building. They want to bring in incubator type spaces for young entrepreneurs, which we don't have within the city right now. It's a huge hole, actually. And so we want budding entrepreneurs to invest in Reynoldsburg and then grow their business as we sort of watch that along. They also want a hotel and convention space. They have 32 conventions every single year where their ranks swell up to over 400 people that come into the city. That's a great way for new bed tax. We want to see new hotels that are invested. And it's not just going to be their hotel, but the existing hotels that are here. And we'll probably see more investment along. So if you can envision what the Alliance is, they are truly the tide that's going to lift a lot of Reynoldsburg boats. And they certainly are the domino that's going to allow a lot of things to fall. It's a really exciting time for them. They're putting a lot of investment. They've closed on a couple of properties. They actually purchased the building that's behind the Kmart. That's going to be their temporary office space for the next 2 years. And then we're already working on some of the nomenclature and the roads and what they're going to be named. I think they've picked One Alliance Way for their building. But I'm very, very fortunate to be a part of the project, very excited about how that's going to look and how that's going to feel, especially on that corridor in the coming 5 years.
Andrew, do you have any idea or announcements about when the Governor's Cigar Lounge will open?
I do not. I think
That may be from another council member. I'm not
Yes.
sure.
I
Maybe.
know if that was from the same council member, he has been asking me to work on some kind of cigar humidor lounge for a very, very long time. I do think that they built some building permits. I think they're working through some of those challenges. I expect it probably to be open sometime in June, around that time, but don't hold me to that. Council member Baker.
One more thing, and you can get your aluminum statue in the roundabout.
Well, here we go.
Are we talking tutors?
Oh, absolutely.
I think everybody's got their own thing. I think that people are looking for sheets, tutors. Somebody had mentioned, a bagel shop and things of that. So yeah, there's always something. But I know we're trying to do a great job of bringing in all sorts of different various things in here as well. Did we have any other questions right now?
Yeah, Lisa Shook is asking if you can elaborate a little bit more. If a solicitor comes to your door and doesn't have a permit, who should you contact?
Well, you can call me. No. At that point in time, what you would do is I would call the city and just let them know that business X was coming around. And usually what we do is we reach out to those businesses the following week or the next day, depending on when things happen. And we reach out to them and say, listen, we don't have a problem with solicitors coming into our community, but there is a process that you have to go through. You have to register with us. We do it for the safety of our citizens. We do it for the safety of our community, and we do it for your safety as well. So that way we provide you that badge. So just give us a call at City Hall so we can get in contact with them to make sure they know the process. All right, so I think that's ends of the questions for right now. We do have a couple of other things to go over. We do have our blessing box locations. They are all around Reynoldsburg, so please make sure you take a look at those. There's actually some flyers that were recently delivered to City Hall to kind of give you an idea of where all the blessing boxes are in the Reynoldsburg area. But if you do not need to use one, but you would like to donate, you are more than welcome to, and in fact, you're encouraged to. Non-perishable items to go into these blessing boxes. There's a Facebook page that you can look at that kind of keeps track of which ones are fully stocked, which ones need some help and things of that nature. And again, I know everybody's back in with school right now, but eventually the time will come where the summer is here and kids are going to be home like they were just last week. But that's when the need will arise again. So let's keep those things in mind. I want to, again, thank all of you for joining us today. It was, as always, a great show. It's very inspirational to hear from our female representatives to talk about National Women's History Month. It's always good to hear from Andrew to hear about what development is out there. Next week, we will have State School Board of Education member Michelle Newman, who represents the Licking County and Fairfield County side of Reynoldsburg when it comes to the State School Board. And obviously, there's a lot of things that are out there that are on topic. The Honorable Joanne Davidson and I were talking about school funding before the show started, because anyone who knows me, that's always where I'm going to talk about at some point in time. I'm sure we'll talk about that. We'll talk about testing and some other issues that are out there as well. So I hope everyone will join us with that. My closing remarks are, as always, first of all, there have been some incidents of violence against Asian Americans, especially yesterday in the Atlanta area. First of all, violence is never the answer. And in the city of respect, in a city that has as much diversity as Reynoldsburg does, we would never want anything like that to happen there. But we also have to remember that each of us plays a role in preventing those kind of acts, whether it is, when someone makes a racially insensitive comment, even if it's something that they've been saying for a long time, you have the ability to stand up and correct that and say those are not the types of things that we tolerate. And that's on all of us, regardless of anything. So I do encourage you to remember that everybody is here. Again, I try not to quote historical people all the time, but Kennedy's speech about, we all breathe the same air. We all want the best for our kids, whether they're Black, whether they're white, whether they're Asian, whether they're from Bhutan, it's all of it. We all want what's best for everything, and we don't need the violence. There's no reason for it. So let us practice some patience. Let us practice some kindness to everyone. And of course, as always, please put your shopping carts away. You don't need to put them. It's not cold anymore. Put your shopping carts away. With that, again, thank you all of you for joining me today. We do appreciate it. I look forward to having you on in the future. But in the meantime, go out and enjoy the sun. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.